Tom Petty went to war over 98 cents. Prince erased his own name. John Fogerty couldn't play his biggest hits for decades. These weren't just bad business deals. They were the most brutal rip-offs in rock history. Superstars who sold millions but lost everything. Artists who became prisoners of their own success. You're about to hear 5 shocking stories where the music industry showed its true face. The dirty contracts, the stolen catalogs, the corporate greed that cost these legends fortunes. From Petty's dollar rebellion to Pearl Jam's $1 million sacrifice, these battles exposed how the system really works. Which story will shock you most? Let's find out. Tom Petty's $8.98. Stand against corporate greed. Picture this, it's 1981, and your record label wants to jack up album prices by $1. Most artists would shrug and cash their checks. Tom Petty threatened to destroy his own album release. MCA Records wanted to raise the price of Hard Promises from $8.98 to $9.98, what they called superstar pricing. To executives, it was just business. To Petty, it was betrayal. He remembered scraping together lunch money as a teenager to buy records. That extra dollar would price out the kids who made his career possible. Petty's response was brilliant. He threatened to retitle the album the $8.98 album, forcing MCA to advertise the very price dispute they wanted to hide. Then he played his trump card. He refused to deliver the master tapes. No tapes, no release, no money. I don't think kids should have to pay more because the record company's being greedy, Petty told reporters. The press ate it up. Here was a millionaire rock star fighting for teenage fans against corporate suits. MCA fought back hard. Damn, the Torpedoes had sold over 2 million copies. Petty was bankable. Why shouldn't they charge premium prices? But Petty had learned from experience. He'd already declared bankruptcy once to escape an unfair contract with Shelter Records. This time, he was ready for war.
This article in the Rolling Stone here, where didn't this go on and on about whether or not the record's going to sell for $9.98 or $8.98? Well, why get involved with the pricing of albums? Many people don't understand why an artist would do that.
Lately, I asked myself this question.
Yes, why do that? Yeah.
It was just too much money to pay for a record, I thought.
The standoff lasted weeks. Music journalists covered it like a heavyweight fight. Finally, MCA blinked. Hard Promises hit stores in May 1981 at exactly $8.98. The album went platinum, proving Petty right. Fans would buy music at fair prices, but Petty's real victory was bigger than one album. He'd shown that artists could challenge the system and win. That single-dollar fight became a blueprint for every musician who'd stand up to their label in the decades that followed. Next up, what happens when you can't even perform the songs you wrote? John Fogerty's 55-year battle for his own songs. Imagine writing Proud Mary and Bad Moon Rising, then watching someone else get rich every time they play on the radio. That was John Fogerty's nightmare for over 5 decades. The trap was set in 1968 when Creedence Clearwater Revival signed with Fantasy Records. Like most young bands, they were thrilled to get any record deal. The contract looked standard until they read the fine print. Fantasy Records owner Saul Zaentz now owned the publishing rights to every song Fogerty would ever write. The numbers were staggering. Between 1968 and 1972, CCR sold 26 million albums worldwide. Songs like Fortunate Son and Have You Ever Seen the Rain became cultural anthems. Fogerty received just 10% in songwriting royalties, while Zaentz collected the real money. Every radio play, every cover version, every movie soundtrack, Zaentz cashed the checks. When CCR broke up in 1972, the situation got worse. Fogerty couldn't even perform his own songs in concert without enriching the man who controlled them. For years, he refused to play CCR hits live, silencing the very music that made him famous. Then came the ultimate insult. In 1985, Zaentz sued Fogerty for plagiarizing himself. The claim? Fogerty's solo hit, The Old Man Down the Road, sounded too much like CCR's Run Through the Jungle. A songwriter was being accused of stealing from his own catalog, music he'd written but didn't own.
That contract we signed was actually before I had written any of the songs. So they came into being not in my ownership ever. Saul owned all the songs that I wrote during the Creedence era. Saul was suing me, owning the old song, and wanted to own my new song, Old Man Down the Road, trying to claim that it was the same song. And it was all BS, of course.
Fogerty won that case, but the message was clear. Sign the wrong contract, and you're trapped forever. He spent the next 4 decades fighting in courts, losing millions in legal fees, watching his own songs make other people rich. Finally, in January 2023, justice arrived. At age 77, Fogerty bought back a majority stake in his CCR catalog for an estimated $30 million. After 55 years, he could finally perform Proud Mary, knowing the royalties would reach the man who actually wrote it. But here's the kicker. That $30 million was just a fraction of what those songs had earned over the decades. Fogerty's fight cost him a fortune, but it exposed how the music industry's contracts could trap even the biggest stars. Next, the artist who changed his name to escape his record deal. Prince's symbolic rebellion against Warner Brothers. What do you do when your record label owns your music and controls when the world can hear it? If you're Prince, you erase your own name. By 1993, Prince was one of the biggest stars on the planet, but Warner Brothers Records owned his master recordings and dictated his release schedule. Despite selling millions of albums, Prince earned just $2 per copy, while Warner collected $15 retail. Worse yet, when Prince wanted to release new music in 1992, Warner said no, claiming market oversaturation. For an artist who sometimes recorded an album's worth of material in a single week, this was creative strangulation. Prince's response was pure genius. He changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol, stripping Warner of their ability to market Prince as a brand they controlled. But the visual protest was even more powerful.
I had searched deep within my heart and spirit, and I wanted to make a change and move to a new plateau in my life. And one of the ways in which I did that was to change my name. It sort of divorced me from the past and all the hang-ups that go along with it.
Why then did you choose the artist formerly known as?
Well, I didn't choose that. That was chosen.
Chosen for you.
Yeah.
He appeared on stage with Slave written across his cheek and performed with duct tape over his mouth. The message was unmistakable. Warner Brothers had silenced one of music's greatest voices. Prince fought back with a flood of albums between 1994 and 1996, fulfilling his contract obligations as fast as possible to escape. Some releases came out under his symbol, others as the artist formerly known as Prince. The strategy was brilliant. He'd bury Warner in so much product, they'd be forced to let him go. The battle lasted 21 years. Industry insiders estimate Warner made over $100 million from Prince's catalog, while he earned a fraction. But in 2014, Prince achieved the impossible. He negotiated the return of his master recordings. When Prince died in 2016, he owned his entire musical legacy. His symbol rebellion had worked. More importantly, it changed the industry. Today's stars like Taylor Swift cite Prince's fight when demanding ownership of their masters. That unpronounceable symbol became the ultimate middle finger to corporate control in music. But if Prince's fight was about creative freedom, our next artist learned that even dream contracts can become prisons. George Michael's $35 million prison. George Michael signed what looked like a dream deal in 1988. Coming off the massive success of Wham! And his solo debut Faith, Sony Music offered him a 15-year contract worth millions. He was 25 years old and on top of the world. What could go wrong? Everything. The contract demanded 7 albums over 15 years, essentially buying George Michael's entire prime. He couldn't work with other labels, couldn't choose his release schedule, couldn't even collaborate freely. Sony owned his creative output until he turned 40. By 1992, the trap was obvious. Michael's album, Listen Without Prejudice Volume 1 had sold over 8 million copies worldwide. Sony pocketed an estimated $35 million from that success, while Michael received standard royalty rates, a fraction of what the label earned. He was making Sony executives rich while feeling like an employee in his own career. So Michael did something unprecedented. He sued Sony in British court, claiming the contract was an unreasonable restraint of trade. No major artist had ever challenged a record label this publicly. The music industry watched in shock. Sony's lawyers argued that contracts were contracts. Michael had signed willingly and should honor his commitments.
I'm fully aware that I'm in a business which pays amazing money, but CBS signed Wham in 1983. Everything that I have been given by Sony, whether it was in 1984, whether it was in 1988, 1990, they have never been giving me anything above the royalties that I had already earned.
In 1994, the judge agreed. Michael lost the case and remained locked into the deal. His legal gamble had failed spectacularly. With court options exhausted, Michael got creative. He fulfilled his obligations with strategic releases like 1996's Older, an album padded with covers and limited new material. It was malicious compliance at its finest. Michael finally escaped in 1998, but the cost was devastating. Picture this: 4 years of his creative prime, ages 29 to 33, completely wasted on lawyers instead of music. While contemporaries like Madonna and U2 dominated the 90s, George Michael sat in courtrooms watching his career slip away. Those should have been his greatest years. Instead, Sony's contract had stolen them. But Michael's fight changed everything. His public battle exposed how 15-year contracts trapped artists. Today, most major label deals last 3 to 5 albums over 5 to 7 years maximum. Record companies learned that imprisoning superstars wasn't worth the bad publicity. Michael paid the price so future artists could have shorter, fairer contracts. Speaking of fighting the system, our final story shows what happens when a band takes on an entire industry. Pearl Jam versus Ticketmaster, the impossible fight. In 1994, Pearl Jam was the biggest rock band in America. They could have played it safe, cashed their checks, and kept their mouths shut. Instead, they declared war on Ticketmaster and sacrificed millions to prove a point. The issue seemed small. Ticketmaster was adding $4.50 in service fees to $18 tickets. But Pearl Jam saw the bigger picture. That 25% markup was pricing out their core fan base, college kids scraping together money for concerts. The band demanded total ticket prices never exceed $20, fees included. Ticketmaster's response was swift and brutal. They controlled 80% of major venues through exclusive contracts. When Pearl Jam tried to book their 1995 summer tour without Ticketmaster, they found only 15 suitable venues nationwide. The biggest rock band in America was suddenly playing fairgrounds and outdoor sheds. Pearl Jam took their fight to Washington. In June 1994, they testified before Congress about Ticketmaster's stranglehold on live music.
Many Pearl Jam fans are teenagers who do not have the money to pay $30 or more that it's often charged for tickets today. It is well known in our industry that some portion of the service charges Ticketmaster collects on its sale of tickets is distributed back to the promoters in the venues. It is this incestuous relationship and the lack of any national competition for Ticketmaster that has created the situation we're dealing with today. As a result, our band, which is concerned about keeping the price of its tickets low, will almost always be in conflict with Ticketmaster, which has every incentive to try to find ways to increase the price of the ticket it sells.
Their manager explained how venues feared retaliation if they worked with competitors. The Justice Department launched an antitrust investigation and found nothing illegal. Ticketmaster's contracts were restrictive, but perfectly legal. The band's principled stand became a financial disaster. Their 1995 tour lost money on every show. Pearl Jam spent $3 million of their own money keeping ticket prices low and forfeited an estimated $10 million in potential earnings. Most artists would never gamble that much income on principle, but Pearl Jam proved their point. They showed that corporate monopolies were driving up costs and limiting choices for music fans. Their sacrifice put Ticketmaster's practices in the spotlight for the first time. Nearly 30 years later, Pearl Jam's predictions came true. Average ticket fees now exceed 30% of face value. A $200 concert ticket often comes with $60 in additional charges. Their impossible fight against Ticketmaster looks prophetic today. Recent lawsuits and congressional hearings about ticket pricing all trace back to Pearl Jam's original stand. They lost the battle but started a war that continues today. Sometimes being right costs everything. But history proves you were fighting for the right cause. 5 artists, 5 brutal rip-offs, millions lost, But here's the thing, every contract signed today, every streaming royalty, every ticket sold carries the scars of these battles. These weren't just rip-offs. They were warnings every musician should remember. Which story shocked you most? Drop it in the comments, and if you want more dirty secrets from the music industry, hit subscribe. Because trust me, we're just getting started.